If there's one prevalent theme for Remedy's design philosophy behind Alan Wake, it has to be that of uncertainty. The game could almost be described as surrealist, with its allusions to unknown happenings and the distorting of reality laced throughout the title's story. I wanted to talk about how this is used in Alan Wake and why a level of interaction can really bring another layer of this stuff to horror games, or psychological thriller, whatever you want to call it. Alan Wake is a bit of a frustrating case because despite personally really enjoying the game, I won't lie, it has good examples of this stuff and bad. Regardless, in an age where Batman-style cheat code vision has become the norm even for Remedy, it was nice to play a game that indulged in the uncertain almost as much as Microsoft are over a sequel. From the very outset, this uncertainty is established as a priority, citing Stephen King as an obvious inspiration.
Stephen King once wrote that nightmares exist outside of logic, and there's little fun to be had in explanations. They're antithetical to the poetry of fear.
Unanswered questions are the fuel for Alan Wake's engine, and the off-putting dream-like nature of much of the game is what gives it its sense of unease and danger. The foggy, hazy air combined with the looming forests of the Pacific Northwest lend the environments an atmosphere of uncertainty. While the areas are considerably open, the cramped vegetation casting shadows everywhere still forms a feeling of claustrophobia and make it harder to tell where you are or where you're going. Just turn off the minimap. Adding to the sense of unease are the occasional corner of your eye moments, stuff that makes you unsure whether you actually saw something or not. My absolute favourite example of this is really early on in the game. There's an optional cabin that you can go into just to listen to a little radio show. To head out, you have to look past the window to the door and will just about catch a Taken strolling past. If you run outside to try and spot where it went, it's nowhere to be seen. I may get scared easily, but regardless, this is one of my most enduring memories from the game, and I feel like it was only really possible because it took place in an interactive setting. Seeing as this takes place outside a cutscene, who's to say that wasn't really just a normal enemy walking past and you happened to catch him doing so when you turned around? The lack of fanfare over a moment like this is what makes it work. It creates a false sense of the player seeing something they weren't meant to, which adds to the fear that anything could happen at the drop of a hat. Unfortunately, the game drops the ball hard in some other places. At the start of most encounters, the camera does this sick slow motion sweep over to your attacker, which eliminates all feelings of anxiety by giving you a clean view of your enemy in a safe environment. The really sad thing is, when it's not quite as flashy, enemy encounters can spook the shit out of you. Check this. The weird, omnipresent breathing and audible footsteps help put you on edge before the guy shows up. The scare is just as much to do with the unease the game puts you in before chucking a fight at you, rather than just, whoa, shoot 'em up time. And hey, whether it was time or budget constraints, the limited enemy variety doesn't help. Once I've fought the same 3 enemy types over and over, I won't be getting worried about my next encounter. It's hard to get scared when you know exactly what you're going to come across. The future-telling manuscript pages certainly don't help in this regard, but at least they're mostly optional. Where are my possessed wolves, Remedy? Or how about some bears? You even had concept art for that one. A little enemy variety goes a long way. It doesn't just mix up the gameplay by adding a little more than point light at thing, then shoot said thing, but it would help continue the uneasiness felt in the early game, as the player has no idea what combination of enemies they're gonna have to deal with.
What the hell?
American Nightmare had some more enemy variety, but that thing had its own problems from not capitalizing on the spooky dream air. The surrounding atmosphere for the OG Alan Wake doesn't lay the foundations for these to be scary, and maybe that was intentional because it was like a cheesy TV thing, but I don't know. Like Alan Wake, the environments are open, but they don't have the illusion of being closed and dense. Everything is way too clear and easy to see. You get this on enemy designs too. Some kids' After Effects fire visuals replace the shaky TV static look of the foes of old. The only thing I felt uncertain about in this DLC trip was the bit of the voice direction.
If you have the time, I'd appreciate if you came up here and explained a few things. All of this is very strange to me.
Good Christ. The special episodes though really stepped up the dubious mood, as the premise allowed Remedy to get a bit more creative with their environments. The geography of the place is weirdly non-sequitorial, and certain environments feel like they've been made artificially longer. Sometimes you'll be left wondering how you even got somewhere in the first place. This gives these episodes a really cool atmosphere and is definitely the peak of the surrealist kind of vibe. One of my favourites is the stairs going up this bridge. You start on a bridge, go up an inexplicably placed staircase for a few flights, then seem to end up on the bridge again and not a word is said about it. This sort of stuff is what gives these episodes the quality of a confusing fever dream that you can't get out of. It gets even more crazy as it goes on, with familiar environments ceasing to make any kind of sense in the ways they twist and turn as you try and make your way through. This is what I mean when I say games are great for this kind of stuff. During gameplay, games are linear in the sense that players will consistently see their character go from A to B with all the filler in between. It's tricky, but if you manage to combine good lighting, environment design, and masking of load times, then you can find ways of using light scripting to mess with someone's mind as they play. The fact that players should be able to completely tell what's going on, seeing as they witness their character go through each step, means that pulling off this kind of stuff well is even more impressive. Keep in mind, I'm mostly talking about being subtle. This isn't about impressing players with some pretty visuals, but being pretty much invisible to someone until after it's happened. Until you just decide to go ham, I guess. For the average player, the end result should hopefully be a mixture of confusion, intrigue, and questioning over whether what they saw was real or someone slipped a little something into their Capri Sun that night.
Hey, this is really good!
I respect Alan Wake for trying this out, but mostly the special features because that's really where it got kicked up a notch. There's not really a big thesis to this video other than pointing out some neat stuff I think Alan Wake did and could have done more of. I just happen to like kinda surreal, booky forests. Games are pretty apt for generating scares in a more nuanced way than body horror and jump scares, so I'd like to see more experimental surrealism and subtle environmental shifts if Alan Wake 2 ever does see the light of day.